I can't believe humans have been faking their own deaths and selling dirt as gold for 10,000 years. We were literally born to hustle.
You're heavy in full and also give creditors a good reason to give him a good insurance policy. Already,
I'm reacting to Trust Me Bros breakdown of history's wildest frauds. Let's see how they scam people before the internet existed.
scam number one, the made you look scam. Here's how the scam goes. You are a caveman, and your enemy, also a caveman, comes to ask you a question. You decide you've had enough of his antics, and point in the direction that's behind him. This caveman turns around, you pull out your trusty club, and hit him in the head. Now, your enemy is dead, and you've just successfully committed a Stone Age scam. In modern terms, that's not much of a scam.
That's not much of a scam. In modern terms, that calls a murder. That means if you did that,
just think about that one episode of SpongeBob that took place in the prehistoric times. That's kind of what we're working with here. But besides the petty theft and petty murder of the Stone Age, I believe one of the biggest scams out of the Stone Age was actually the existence of the Stone Age itself. You see, the Stone Age primarily is defined by its use of stone tools, specifically near the very end of the
Stone Age itself should just be the scam of the whole Stone Age rebellion. Just itself should have been the main focus of this whole clip right here.
And this is because humans using stone tools signifies the evolution of human creativity, human engineering, human development. Now, you may be thinking, well, of course, we need this human development. This isn't a scam at all. This is beautiful. This is progress. And what I would say to you is, not really. Because look where it's gotten us. As humans, we used to sleep outside under the stars, do whatever we wanted all day, go to the bathroom anywhere. We essentially lived like animals. And it was
back then, we started living like animals, sleeping wherever we want, do whatever we want, use the bathroom wherever we want, and we get anything, and we don't even get in trouble for doing those stuff.
Just look how good your dog or cat has it right now. We used to live like them, but now
we used to live like a dog and cat.
To a job.
But now we gotta go.
We have anxiety. We have bills. Our bills even have bills at this point. So although the scam may have not taken place in the Stone Age, it definitely started in the Stone Age. And potentially one of the biggest scams of the Stone Age was that one meddling, weaselly little caveman that decided to combine a stick with a rock. And maybe if he was the one who got clubbed, we would still be living that sweet animalistic lifestyle. This first section was a bit silly, but
So you're telling me that the one who got clubbed was the scammer, and you tell me the way he got scammed was a stick and a circular rock shaped like a donut? That's the dumbest scam in modern day history I ever seen.
But I didn't want to leave this Stone Age out of a video about every time period. But with that being said, as we now transition into recorded history, the scams are going to be historically documented and much more serious. But this is a Trust Me Bro video, so
I want to see what the biggest scam in this video.
No, not LeBron James. The Bronze Age. Not LeBron's age. The Bronze Age. Yes, that was corny, and yes, we're keeping it in. We are now in the Bronze Age, the beginning of recorded scams. And the scam I'm going to be speaking about from the Bronze Age involves metal fraud, and also includes the earliest ever recorded customer complaint. Let me explain. The year is circa 1750 BC, right near the end of the Bronze Age. And there is a famous copper merchant named Nasser, unsurprisingly, would buy and sell metals, specifically copper. And this merchant was no stranger to customer
people needed
complaints, with one of the most famous examples coming from a customer named Nani. Nani's specific issue with Nasser was that Nasser was selling bad quality or low quality copper, and that was a big issue for Nani. Unlike the Stone Age, I'm not just making this up. This transaction and subsequent complaint is recorded in commercial tablets. These tablets were actually unearthed with a group of other
I have seen people trying writing things. I never seen it, but I have saw it when I took a history class and watched it on TV of people back then writing things on those like tablets and stuff.
tablets recording transactions and complaints about the copper quality. And these were all found in a home that was believed to at one point been owned by Ian Nassar, which is by itself just a really cool piece of history. Ian Nassar was a well-known copper merchant in his city and was even a member of an established and, relatively speaking, respected copper guild, meaning that he wasn't just any Joe Schmo. However, these credentials definitely didn't help him with his business dealings, because although he may have been surrounded by proper, integral copper merchants, E. Nasir was likely nothing of the sort. And this is proven by the famous tablet sent to E. Nasir from Nani, which has actually been translated, and I'm about to read exactly what Nani said to E. Nasir, and I'll let you decide whether or not E. Nasir was a scammer. The tablet reads as follows. When you came, you said to me as follows. I will give Gimosin fine quality.
He gave you 1 pound, 1,000 pounds of copper. What are you going to do with that?
Has likewise, that was long, but I wanted to give you the exact full quote because I think it's extremely interesting. And I think that Nani's being rather patient and has more than enough reason to be upset. To summarize, E. Nasir, at least to Nani, is selling low quality copper. And not only is he selling a low quality product, but he's promising a high quality product. And when questioned by the servants that are going to pick up the product, he is not nice at all. He's very combative within these transactions. And not only that, he's also refusing to give a full or even partial refund to Nani after he's complained. And Nani has sent multiple messengers to collect a refund. And what does Nasir do? He turns them away empty-handed and sends him through enemy territory to risk the life of the messenger just to add insult to injury for Nani. I don't know about you, but if I was Nani, I would definitely be sending somebody else to E. Nasir's door that wasn't a messenger looking for my money back. But even after all of this, Nani isn't even refusing to deal with E. Nasir anymore. He's just saying that once he gets the copper from E. Nasir, he's going to go through and verify the quality himself before he buys it, which is something he likely should have been doing, but I guess didn't feel like he had to be doing because he was buying from a merchant in the Copper Guild. But lesson learned on Nani's part, check your metal as you buy it. So yeah, this one tablet that was found thousands of years after it was created went on to solidify Ian Nasser as one of the most notorious Bronze Age businessmen and scammers. Before we get to the next section, I actually want to jump ahead because I do want to discuss a scam from the modern era that most people are still falling for: overpaying for wireless earbuds. Fortunately, this video is sponsored by Raycon. Offers a premium quality 2 hours of noise cancellation, which I love using specifically in the gym because when I'm working out, Raycon personally got the literally represents iron becoming the prominent metal that is being mined, forged, and fashioned into tools and ornaments and armor. The Iron Age doesn't take place in the Iron Age. It definitely has its roots in the Iron Age. So I'm going to allow that technicality to make this work because trust me, we do have some crazy scams coming up. The Iron Age is when we truly see the rise of coinage being used. During the mid to late Iron Age, we see coins being minted and being transacted, which during this time in history, circa 600 BC, is a relatively new methodology of transacting. Because up until this point, all of commerce was conducted through trade. One good for another. There was no store of value. It was simply merchandise for merchandise. No currency of any sort, at least in the form of coinage. Prior to coinage, precious metals were definitely the currency of choice, but they weren't necessarily currency, just something of value to most people.
They weren't like the money-making currency that we got to this day.
And a good way to store value efficiently, as they were non-perishable and value-dense, for the most part. Now, even during this time in the late Iron Age, these coins that were being made weren't even used for transacting yet. They were primarily religious objects, typically used as badges or medals. But it didn't take too long for these people that were creating these interesting and valuable metals to create something that had trade value. Specifically with ancient Greek coinage being minted by the Ionian Greeks in the late 6th century, right at the ass crack of the Iron Age. And it is believed that these ancient Greek coins were the first coins ever to be used for transacting on a large-scale basis, and they were made primarily of small silver fractions. But this recent innovation of commerce spread like wildfire through the 5th and 6th century BC, and quickly became the standard, primarily being pioneered by the ancient Greeks and other empires of the time. But this in itself isn't the scam. It's simply the context for the scam that we are about to discuss. This context is important because it anchors us to the Iron Age, although what we're about to discuss happens slightly after the Iron Age, and involves actually the Roman Empire. During the Iron Age, ancient Rome is established, and during the end of the Iron Age, the Roman Republic is established. And during these times, the innovation with iron is giving Rome...
With the fall of the Roman time or Roman, something with the Roman Empire.
Was established, coinage was in full effect and used effectively and worked as follows. Early coinage would be made out of pure copper. These ingots would be purchased, minted, and then sold into circulation with a face value slightly above their metal value. This allowed the government to make a small profit on every coin that they minted and also allowed the currency to keep a consistent value, as it had an intrinsic value of the metal it was made out of, while it also had a face value of only slightly above that, which everyone generally accepted. Coins typically varied in value from region to region, meaning that in simple modern terms, if you had a coin that had a face value of $2, but was, made out of $1.50's worth of silver, in your region, you can trade this for $2. But if you go to a different region where they have their own coinage, they're not going to accept your coinage at face value, but they'll take it at intrinsic value, meaning that your $2 coin in this new region is now worth $1.50. And this system actually incentivized local trade, as you are going to get the most bang for your buck. But the scam we are going to discuss is the debasement of coin that happened when the government wanted...
At this time of period, I'm confused. So if I can trade my coin for the face value of it, right, and then go to a different country, and I can trade my coin and for the same amount of value that I was trying to pay for it the first time, making it seem like someone is trying to upprice you. Because if that happens nowadays, it's like you already know, now somebody's trying to scam me or upcharge me the amount of value that I'm not really going to pay for it.
Wanted to inflate the number of coins that they would simply use a poor quality metal. This would save them money and make the coins that they make cheaper and still be selling them same face value.
That actual coin are made for, so you can not get charged too much and you can save money.
The impact of this was obviously massive, as this massive influx of token supply and massive decline in intrinsic value of these tokens created hyperinflation, and runaway hyperinflation actually happened multiple times throughout the Roman Empire. As I mentioned before, most of this debasement would happen to fund military campaigns to try to get more land, more money, more power, and they likely justified this debasement by saying they were going to collect more wealth for the greater empire. Although what really happened was prices would rise, and the value of coins that everybody was collecting, holding, trading with was dropping significantly. And it wasn't unheard of for an army to go...
And for an army to get paid in coins, the value of it would definitely decrease. Because once modern days started rising and things started getting more and more developed and more expensive, the coin value of any type of coin would definitely decrease. So I didn't say
go on a campaign, get paid their money, only to realize that once they go to spend their money, the big paycheck that they thought they had gotten is now only worth a few days' meals, which obviously put pressure between the government and the army, something that no government wants to have. I think it's important to note that in modern times, the creation of money instead of inflation is something we kind of just accept, and it's part of how our currency operates. However, at this time, each individual coin had an intrinsic value, and that was the backing of its value. And even if you paid for currency in your local region and took it to a different region, even if they did not accept your region's currency, they would still pay you what your precious metal was worth, meaning that your money could never go to nothing. Opposed to put it in...
Not in the early that they were looking for.
There was forgery, debasement, and fraud. But I wanted to cover the hyperinflation of the Roman Empire because I thought it was a great summary of what was brewing in the Iron Age at a major historical scale. And while the Roman Empire did not exist in the Iron Age, ancient Rome did. And I'm making this point abundantly clear to prevent...
So you're telling me that the Roman Empire scammed people to make a cheaper profit while still making a good amount of deal for him. See, that's why being a government in that time frame, it kind of dumb, but it kind of smart if you know how to go do it and go on the bridge without people knowing.
The same face value, and well, it backfired on everybody. The classical era. Although we are now in the classical era, the scam that we're about to discuss is anything but classic, and actually contains what is believed to be the first instance of insurance fraud, which is just great to hear that people have been committing insurance fraud for thousands of years. Perhaps insurance fraud is just in our DNA. In the classical era, there was a man in ancient Greece known as Hegestratos, and he was a little bit of a knucklehead. During roughly 5th century BCE, near the beginning of the classical era, maritime trade was booming. Hegestratos was a ship owner and was profiting from this maritime trade that was taken off. And because he had a big and beautiful and shiny ship, he decided that it would be wise to get insurance, which he did. And this insurance not only covered his cargo, but also his ship on any given sea voyage. How it would work is lenders would lend money to these seafarers using the ship and its loot as collateral. The lender would say, hey, your boat is worth 2 gold ingots, and everything in it is worth 5 gold ingots. Great, I'll give you 7 gold ingots. If you come back from your journey of trade with 10 ingots worth of stuff, that's great. Give me 9 ingots. That means I make a 2 ingot profit, and you make a 1 ingot profit. But if...
Whoa! So you're telling me that you're making more profit on what they're doing, and you giving them less of the profit than what they wanted to.
If your ship sinks while you're on this voyage, you don't have to give me anything. That's essentially how the insurance existed, and this helped mitigate the risk for the seafarer and also give these lenders the opportunity to make money with some risk. But obviously, nobody was going to be incentivized to sink their own ship or not come back with loot. The whole point of the voyage was to make money.
So he did it different than the other people did. I didn't expect him to actually go that far.
Of valuables on top of a lot of boxes of basically garbage. This would make the ship appear heavy and full and also give creditors a good reason to give him a good insurance policy. Already, Hegestratos was scamming because creditors would give Hegestratos an inflated value, essentially. If Hegestratos was able to, he also has debt, and it wasn't long before Hegestratos' scam was exposed. And this kind of shocked the ancient Greek world because during this time, there was integrity and respect for the law and understanding when it came to commerce. And such a fraud was not even necessarily thought of, but when the scam was exposed, it kind of exposed the vulnerability in these early financial contracts and how people could manipulate things in a way that may seem counterintuitive, but would ultimately be beneficial for the scammer. The case of Hegestratos
that's the reason why his scam got exposed.
Is considered to be one of the biggest scams of the classical era.
He
not
had
only
to
because it was
watching the video right, because y'all not watching it and seeing how he scammed the people in the classic era.
First instance of insurance scam and kind of gave the entire insurance industry a huge shakeup and a wake-up call for how they had to protect themselves moving forward when they were crediting people who could potentially screw them over. So yeah, the classical era, I'm sure, had more scams than you could count. But I definitely think the case of Hegestratos is one of the most interesting and definitely one of the most defining of this time period. The medieval era. I don't know about you, but I feel like the medieval era is definitely one of the most interesting parts of history. You have castles, knights, kingdoms, wealth and a plethora of scams. What is there not to enjoy? It was honestly a bit tough to pick just one scam for the medieval era, but I'm happy with the one I chose, so let's get right into it. There's no doubt that in medieval times, the Christian religion was everything. And this is kind of proven by all of the art, architecture, writings. Everything was the Christian religion. And with every fan base comes collectors. And while the Christian religion didn't necessarily have marketable plushies at the time, they definitely had a huge underground market for relics. And these relics were definitely odd, to say the least. Potentially the most famous Christian relic would be the Holy Grail. But it's definitely not the only relic that people were interested in getting their hands on. With some of the most popular and sought after ancient relics being the literal bones of saints. Like, let's say there was a famous saint who was very prolific and known in the church. Well, once they die, if you could get one of their bones, you could possess their magical powers. Like, literally, that was the mindset. Merchants and other saints.
What magical power? What magical power you get if you adjust one of their bones? How slow the people gotta be at that time? I swear, back then, some people had to bring up an ostrich. And their mind was so small, they probably didn't understand it.
Other saints and even individuals wanted these bones for a plethora of different reasons. Wealthy individuals would typically want to collect these relics to help make their own desires and dreams come true. As these Christian relics were believed to essentially cause miracles. And in that instance, if there was an object that could bless you, that could make all of your dreams come true, that could protect your family and defeat your enemies, is there really a price you wouldn't pay for them? But here's the thing. not many people had this money at all. And what people resorted to was visiting churches that had these relics, so that they could gain the power and benefit of them from a fraction of the price. And that's exactly why bishops and priests would collect these relics. Obviously, they would see the value of these blessed items that can provide miracles as something that they would want to have in their life and in their church. But they also noticed that any church with relic didn't really. Which was great for investors because, supply and demand, but that also gave incentive for others. The only way that a relic could really even be brought into this underground market was by a crusader who would go and reclaim the relic from the Holy Land, or a merchant who would do business in the Holy Land, hopefully trying to get a relic or something close to a relic that they could buy cheap and sell for a massive profit back in Europe. But these two methods were slow, demand whatsoever, which is why some interesting individuals decided to help contribute to that supply chain issue. Here's the deal. Obviously, these relics have absolutely no certificate of authenticity or receipt or anything.
They don't got no certificate of authenticity or any type of, I was going to say like proof, but they don't got any like verity things around that.
Any sort of tracking on where they came from. It's essentially just word of mouth. So if you were a respected or authoritative or even just a charismatic figure, you could kind of pass off anything as a relic with enough convincing.
So
and that's exactly the scam that we're going to discuss. Fake black market Christian relics. Some famous examples of this would be fake bones. For example, St. John the Baptist was a famous saint that people claimed to have relics of, and these relics were his bones. But once all of the bones that were claimed...
You talking about his bones? Or somebody else's bones? Because how can he have that of his own bones
to be his were accounted for and organized? It was concluded that either St. John had 3 heads and 5 arms, or some people had some fake relics. 2 other famous and common fake relics were pieces of the Holy Shroud and splinters from the cross that Jesus was crucified on. Obviously, any part of either of these items would have extreme significance to history, and even the tiniest morsel of either of these items would be massively valuable. And for that reason, people decided to make their own. At the time, the only way that these relics could be verified is if they actually had provable miracle abilities. So if a church had a relic in it, and somebody with a disability was healed, or a sick person was made healthy again, or a dying person was living...
So if someone made somebody unsick, or someone to not get close to dying, then that's your proof?
Longer, or a poor man came into money. If any of these happened after somebody encountered the relic would have been proved real. And the people who had experienced miracles from these relics would go and tell their friends and their family, essentially marketing the church that had this relic in-house. But even with that being said, who's to say if these people had experienced miracles from genuine or non-genuine items? It really kind of gets messy from there. Once the industry of fake relics began to become exposed, it was almost a running joke at the time that if they bought all of the splinters being sold from the cross, they would actually be able to build a warship out of all of the wood. If anybody tries to sell you a piece of wood telling you that it came from the cross that Jesus was crucified on, I would probably pass, or at least confirm it can do miracles.
If you think selling fake copper in 1750 BC is crazy, wait until you see what Michelangelo did to get famous. It's a total game changer. Stick around for that.
Cupid. It was an extremely lifelike and beautiful sculpture that highlighted exactly how talented Michelangelo was even at an early age. But during the Renaissance era, art collectors weren't necessarily looking for modern art. They were looking for historic pieces, which typically meant ancient Roman or Greek statues, rather than
they're looking for like the
So what Michelangelo did with this statue of the Cupid was he decided instead of selling it for a cheaper price by intentionally wearing it down. It's not quite confirmed how he did it, but he made sure to make this sculpture look worn. And it obviously worked because he was actually able to sell it as a lost Roman antiquity. And not only was he able to
so he tried to make it like it was ancient or something like he had it for so long and he made it before its time. And damn, Michelangelo, I expect you to actually make a profit off of that.
But he sold it, and when Michelangelo came to Rome, he was given his first major opportunity in his career, and this was the actual opportunity that launched Michelangelo's career and made him the icon that he is today. This cardinal was able to understand the genius of the young Michelangelo, and was likely thinking that if he could point him in the right direction...
That's the reason why Michelangelo became famous. That's the reason why he became famous with all the other, like Leonardo, Donatello
create one of the best artists of all time. So yeah, as far as Renaissance scams are concerned, I think Michelangelo selling one of his original artworks as an antiquity summarizes this era perfectly. And it's kind of ironic to think that Michelangelo literally had to make his art something else to try and sell it. Regardless, Michelangelo was but when he was starting out, he was definitely clever when it came to selling his art. We've covered a lot of scams in this video so far, but one scam we haven't covered is the fake king scam. Obviously, because you can't fake being a king, right? There's no way you can just tell.
How can you fake being a king? What does it have to do with faking being a king? Is there some way that you gotta do to fake being a king?
People that, hey, actually, I'm the king. Not only are people not going to believe you, but you're likely going to be killed. And that's the truth, unless your name is Perkin Warbeck, who in the 1490s not only claimed to be a king, but also became a serious threat for the reigning king at the time. And he gained significant backing and support. But before we get to how this entire scam ends, let me tell you how it starts. Perkin Warbeck claimed to be the younger of the two princes in the tower, which, if you're unfamiliar, the princes in the tower refers to a mysterious disappearance of two young royals. King Edward V of England and his younger brother, Prince Richard of Shrewsbury, Duke of York.
Once the king, your father, died, the oldest is supposed to be king, and then the younger be king once the oldest died. But how he became king before his brother? Or did he take that? Or did he kill his brother to be
heirs to the throne of King Edward IV of England? But at the ages of 12 and 9, they were locked away in the Tower of London by their uncle, and they were never seen again. This obviously caused a lot of issues within the kingdom, but for Perkin Warbeck, this created an opportunity. Before pretending to be a king, Warbeck was born into a rich merchant-class family and traveled around and spent time in Ireland selling silks before him and his friend came up with the plan to impersonate the younger of the two brothers who disappeared. As this missing person was not only not found, an heir to...
He would never part the younger brother that went missing. He just lied to everybody like he was. And your friend actually joined in with that. And nobody knows,
meaning that if this person was found, they had legitimate claim to the kingdom, which is definitely a title worth fighting for. Warbeck didn't just hit the streets telling everybody, hey, by the way, I'm the prince and I'm back and I'm totally good. He was very strategic in who he decided to lay his claim to, which was high-ranking government officials. He gained his first piece of notable support from King Charles VIII of France. And this is a major piece of backing to have behind you. Because if the king of another country recognizes and supports you as the lost heir to a throne, you have some serious credibility to your claim. But this didn't last long. As King Henry VII, the current king, had formed an alliance with the King of France, there was no longer support from the King of France to be helping Perkin Warbeck. So he kind of had to start from scratch once again. So the next place that Perkin Warbeck went for support is actually insane, because he went to the actual sister of the lost princes in the tower, and not only did he go there to claim that he...
How you gonna go and claim that you're a king? The sister can actually tell you're not king. So, if I went to the actual brother of the lost boy or the sister, then they gonna know I'm not king.
Was her long-lost brother, but she bought it up. She was like, oh yeah, you are totally my long-lost brother. And now this support is likely even more valuable than the initial support, because no sibling is going to accept a faker as their long-lost sibling, right? Regardless of their beliefs or intentions, this duchess appeared to believe Perkin Warbeck, and with this support, Perkin continued his conquest to claim that he was the long-lost king. The following year, in 1493, he attended the funeral of Maximilian's father, Frederick III, where he was actually recognized as King Richard IV of England at the funeral. And it only took 2 more years in 1495 for support for Warbeck to have the throne bubbling within England. Warbeck was actually able to gather an army of 150 people and attempted a landing in Kent, where Warbeck and his small army were met with locals who were loyal to their actual king, Henry VII, and the Battle of Deal.
No way he actually went through it and actually became king. He only started this because his friend and him wanted to do it, and
ensued. Most of this army died, and Warbeck retreated back to Ireland. But even in Ireland, he was facing issues and once again fled to Scotland. While in Scotland, Perkin was actually able to set up an arranged marriage with one of the relatives of the king, known as Lady Catherine Gordon. And now, after officially becoming royalty in some regard, the Scottish palace was open to Warbeck to gather his army and begin to plan another attack on England. The attack that Perkin Warbeck and the Scottish king had planned ended up failing before it even started. And what I mean by that is, before the battle even started, they essentially retreated. But the following year, the Scottish king and Warbeck tried again. But this time, their landing was different. In 1497, support for the current king of England was low, primarily to new taxes and rising legislation. And for this reason, and because more time had passed for people to sympathize with Perkin, who was pretending to be lost king, there was slightly more popularity for him on English soil. So this landing was met with some support. He actually was able to raise a rebellion and was declared King Richard IV, the person he was claiming to be this entire time. And at this point, it may have seemed that his plan was successful. And his next plan...
Hey, hear all that? You believe that Perkins' whole plan was successful. You believe that he actually succeeded in his plan, right? But you're probably wrong about it.
Attack was to siege the city, where King Henry VII was currently residing. And this siege failed. And once again, his men died, and Perkin Warbeck had to go into hiding once again. And he was able to flee successfully. Well, at least successfully because he escaped the battle alive, but not fully successfully. Because the place that he ended up residing applied a lot of pressure to Perkin. So much pressure so that he actually ended up surrendering himself to the English government because he was promised a pardon if he surrendered instead of causing any more battles. In 1497, while
I admit I should have never done right then. Should have never faked being king. Arrest me, put me in jail, put me in handcuffs, like...
Not the prince in the tower, and he was not royalty whatsoever. He straight up admitted to being a pretender because he was promised immunity for telling the truth. But obviously that wasn't the case. After this admission, he was kept close to the king and essentially imprisoned. And a year later, he actually tried to escape England, where he was caught and brought back, and at that point he was put ironically in the Tower of London, where the initial two lost princes were lost from. And it was in here where Perkin Warbeck tried to plan another escape and another overthrowing of the government, essentially. That plan was uncovered, and Perkin Warbeck was executed in 1499. This was a bit of a longer segment, but I wanted to go into detail because this story is literally insane. In a 9-year span, Perkin Warbeck is going from a rich kid who's just living in Ireland.
And you tell me, 9 year, a rich kid from Ireland who thought it would be a smart thing to boast, like you were one of the prince brother that been gone, and you came back to reclaim the throne.
Ireland, selling silk, to, from the suggestion of a friend, dedicating the next 9 years of his life
just
essentially
a conquest
that to claim he is the long-lost heir to the throne in
gold burner and not let anybody catch him.
Because of it. If that's not a scam, I don't know what is. The modern era. Unfortunately, there is absolutely no shortage of scams in the modern day. And I'm sure anybody watching this video right now could name at least 5 to 10 scams just off the top of their head.
Hey, in the modern era, I can say this. Y'all in the comments can name about maybe 20 scams to this day that happened in the past year before 2026. And so much people that died off of a scam. And you can name it right now in the comments. Wrap it up for this one. If you find this helpful, hit that subscribe circle right in the top corner so you don't miss next week's drop. If you want to dive deeper into this topic, I put together a full playlist right here. Otherwise, you do things you love this special video.
Misunderstood, so misunderstood. My temper is bad, my mission is good. I'll never be labeled as good.